The rain poured in restless sheets over Lagos that night, thunder shaking the rusted rooftops, but Victor Omanigo did not flinch. He sat cross-legged on the cold floor of his mother's tiny room, the glow of his old laptop bouncing shadows across peeling walls. His fingers tapped nervously, a half-empty cup of Gary and groundnuts beside him, while the words on the screen promised a fortune he had never touched before. "Hello, dear," he typed, pretending to be a lonely widow in Alabama. "I just need a little help paying for my medicine." He hesitated for only a breath before pressing send. That single click, simple and quiet, would become the first domino in a chain that carried him from hunger and obscurity to private jets, mansions, and the glittering title of billionaire. Victor had not always planned to scam. In fact, as a boy he dreamed of becoming a pilot. He would lie on the dry ground of Benin City and trace airplanes carving silver trails across the blue, whispering, "One day." But life, as it often does, hardened those soft dreams. His father, a humble teacher, died suddenly, leaving behind debts that swallowed the family whole. Victor's mother, bent from years of hawking akara by the roadside, tried to keep the family afloat, but poverty clung to them like stubborn harmattan dust. School fees became a luxury. Meals shrank to once a day. At 14, Victor was already stealing cheap electronics from open stalls just to survive. It was in those desperate teenage years that he met Pascal, the neighborhood Yahoo boy everyone whispered about. Pascal wore gold chains, always had money for suya, and carried himself like a king in the ghetto. One evening, after Victor's stomach growled so loud it embarrassed him, Pascal leaned over and said, "My guy, why suffer when there's easy money in America? You just need courage." That night, Pascal showed him how to open fake email accounts, how to spin tales of love, inheritance, and tragedy. Felt like acting, only the audience was real, and the applause came in the form of Western Union receipts. Soon, the little laptop became Victor's ticket out of hunger. Dollars began to trickle in, then flow. He bought his mother her first freezer, stocked with food. He sent his younger siblings back to school. For the first time, laughter returned to their cramped home. And yet, each victory tasted of guilt, like eating stolen bread. Still, the money drowned out his doubts. Survival has no manual, he would whisper to himself, convincing his conscience that the end justified the means. By 22, Victor was no longer just another hustler in Lagos cybercafes. He had graduated into elaborate schemes, fake investment platforms, lottery winnings that never existed, even romance scams that stretched over years. He studied psychology, watched videos on persuasion, learned how loneliness could break even the strongest hearts. Americans, Canadians, Australians. Each new client was a target to be charmed, manipulated, and eventually drained. Some cursed him, some cried, some begged. He shut his ears. Money was all that mattered. And money came in torrents. He bought a small plot of land in Lekki and built his first modest duplex. From there, the vision of legitimacy began to grow. Victor no longer wanted to be just another scammer hiding in shadows. He wanted to be respected, photographed with politicians, toasted at parties. "If I play this right," he told himself, "nobody will remember where the money started." With each new scam, he invested in something tangible. Nightclubs where Afrobeat stars performed, hotels where foreign guests marveled at Nigerian hospitality, estates with marble gates where luxury cars lined up like obedient soldiers. He perfected the image of success. Expensive suits draped his tall frame, diamond watches glistened on his wrists, and every Instagram post painted him as a visionary entrepreneur. His captions carried hashtags like #hardworkpays and #graceofgod, masking the blood and tears of strangers buried in the foundation of his empire. To young men across Lagos, Victor was proof that dreams could be built overnight. To struggling families in Atlanta, Chicago, and Houston, he was a faceless thief who stole not just money but trust. Still, Victor remained haunted. At night, when the city quieted, his wife Amaka would sometimes catch him staring blankly at the ceiling. "What is it, Victor?" she asked once, her voice soft. He forced a smile, kissed her forehead, and muttered, "Nothing, love, just thinking of tomorrow." But deep inside, he feared tomorrow more than anything. He knew that every empire built on lies had an expiry date. He simply prayed his own would never arrive. The Lagos elite embraced him without question. Politicians invited him to fundraisers. Church leaders seated him on the front pew, praising his generosity. He donated to orphanages, built boreholes in villages, and appeared on magazine covers as one of Nigeria's fastest-rising entrepreneurs. Cameras flashed, praise songs echoed, yet behind each smile was the shadow of those late-night scams, emails written in broken grammar, and tears shed by strangers who believed his lies. It was during one of those glamorous evenings, standing beneath chandeliers in Victoria Island, that Victor whispered to himself, "I made it." And indeed he had. From the dusty streets of Benin City to becoming a billionaire commanding attention in every corner of Lagos, Victor had climbed heights unimaginable. What he didn't know was that, far across the ocean, a quiet storm was gathering. A storm carrying names, bank transfers, broken hearts, and the determination of victims who would no longer remain silent. Victor Omanigo's estate in Banana Island glimmered like a jewel dropped into the Atlantic. White walls towered above manicured lawns, glass windows reflected the restless Lagos sun, and a fountain in the shape of a lion sprayed water high into the humid air. Drivers polished Bentleys and Rolls-Royces until they sparkled like mirrors. Inside, chandeliers swung gently in the air-conditioned hush, their golden light gliding across marble floors. Every corner spoke of victory, of a man who had conquered poverty and etched his name into the city's memory. But behind the shine was a foundation cracked with secrets. He had mastered the art of appearing legitimate. The hotels he built in Abuja attracted diplomats. His clubs in Lekki pulsed with the heartbeat of Afrobeat. Real estate became his crown jewel, and international investors, unaware of the rot beneath, lined up to partner with him. Magazines called him Nigeria's property visionary. Politicians visited his homes, raising glasses of champagne, promising favors. He was careful now, laundering money through shell companies, placing trusted men in charge of the dirtiest deals. In public, he was no longer the scammer tapping away in a cyber cafe. He was Mr. Omanigo, philanthropist, builder, billionaire. His wife Amaka basked in the glow but carried quiet doubts. She remembered the man who once bought her roasted corn at a roadside stand, his palms rough but honest. Now he came home with diamond necklaces and silk gowns, yet his eyes carried a weariness she could not reach. "Victor," she whispered one night as they lay in their king-sized bed, "do you ever wonder if all this will last?" He chuckled, though the sound was hollow. "Of course it will. I've worked too hard for it to vanish." She nodded, but in her heart, unease grew like weeds. Their children lived a life she had never dreamed of. Private schools, summer trips to Paris, birthday parties with clowns and ponies. They adored their father, calling him Superman. Yet Amaka knew the truth of Superman. Every hero hides a weakness. She feared Victor's was not kryptonite, but his past. Still, she said nothing. Silence, she believed, kept the family safe. Victor himself lived in dual worlds. By day, he played the role of respected entrepreneur, shaking hands with governors, sitting on panels about Africa's rising economy. By night, he sometimes returned to the shadows, managing the last threads of fraud through younger protégés. He told himself it was necessary. "One last deal," he would whisper, clicking open his secure accounts. But there was always another last deal. Unknown to him, across the ocean, those he had wronged were slowly weaving their own web. A retired nurse in Ohio, a young teacher in Florida, a widower in Texas. Each had lost thousands to his promises. Alone, their voices were whispers. Together, they became a storm. Through an online support group, they found each other, sharing names, emails, bank account details. They noticed patterns. The same phrasing, the same fake profiles, the same man hiding in plain sight. "We can't let him keep doing this," one woman typed. Another replied, "We'll make sure he pays." Meanwhile, Victor's public image soared. He sponsored music videos, his name appeared in the credits of Nollywood films, and Instagram crowned him the king of luxury. Hard work, prayer, and vision. He preached in interviews, though the words burned his throat. Churches called him to give testimonies. Pastors anointed him with oil, declaring him a beacon for young men. If only they knew the truth, that behind his tailored suits and expensive cologne was the same boy who once lied about medicine to strangers. But signs of danger crept in like cracks in glass. An old friend, arrested for fraud, mentioned Victor's name during interrogation. A newspaper in the U.S. published a story about romance scam syndicates in Nigeria, including details eerily close to his methods. Victor's lawyers reassured him, "No evidence points directly to you." He wanted to believe them, but his heart raced whenever his phone buzzed with unknown numbers. Amaka noticed his unease. One afternoon, as she prepared jollof rice in their sparkling kitchen, she asked gently, "Are you hiding something from me?" Victor froze, the fork in his hand hovering above the plate. "Don't be silly," he muttered, but his voice cracked. She reached for his hand. "Victor, wealth without peace is chains in disguise." He pulled away, forcing a smile. "Peace is expensive, my love, and I've paid the price." But deep inside, he knew he had only rented it, and the lease was expiring. Still, Lagos adored him. Billboards showed his face beside slogans about progress. Young men idolized him, copying his fashion, his swagger, his captions. They never saw the sleepless nights, the locked drawers full of fake documents, the constant fear of a knock on the door. He stood at the top of a glittering tower, but every brick was stolen. And though the city cheered, the ground beneath was trembling. The empire thrived, the parties raged, the money flowed. But unseen across the ocean, the victims had spoken to the FBI. A case file was building, heavy with bank records, testimonies, and wire transfers. Each document was a nail, each testimony a hammer. And while Victor raised champagne glasses under Lagos lights, somewhere in America, an agent closed the folder and whispered, "We've got him." The John F. Kennedy International Airport bustled with its usual rhythm. Suitcases rolling, flight attendants hurrying, families embracing. Yet for Victor Omanigo it felt like the stage of destiny. He strode confidently through the glass doors, his Italian shoes clicking on polished floors, a tailored navy blue suit hugging his frame. He was in New York for an international real estate summit, invited as a keynote speaker. Cameras had flashed as he left Lagos, fans cheering, "Our billionaire!" Amaka kissed his cheek at the airport, whispering, "Be careful." He had laughed it off. After all, what danger could touch him now? But as he presented his passport at immigration, the officer's eyes flickered oddly. A subtle nod passed between two uniformed men. Victor adjusted his cufflinks, his smile steady, though his heart began to race. Another officer appeared, asking politely, "Sir, could you step aside for a quick check?" He obeyed, calm on the outside, screaming within. They led him to a small room, walls bare, the air heavy. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, the door opened, and men in dark suits entered. One of them spoke firmly, "Victor Omanigo, you are under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and money laundering." His world cracked in an instant. The cameras he loved so much returned, but now they were wielded by journalists flashing bulbs like lightning. "Billionaire arrested." Headlines screamed within hours. Back in Lagos, his staff froze in disbelief, phones buzzing non-stop. Amaka dropped the tray she was carrying, the plates shattering across the marble floor. "No, no, not Victor," she whispered, her hands trembling. His children heard the news from classmates before she could shield them. "Your daddy is a fraud," voices jeered at school. Their tears flowed like rivers, innocence pierced by shame. In America, Victor's trial became a spectacle. Courtrooms filled with journalists, lawyers, and victims flown in to testify. One by one, voices rose, each story cutting deeper than the last. An elderly widow described how she sold her home after believing Victor's promises of love. A single mother recounted losing her savings to his fake investment scheme, her daughter crying beside her. A young man revealed how he was tricked into believing he had inherited millions, only to end up bankrupt. Their words were arrows, piercing Victor's carefully built armor. He sat in silence, his once proud shoulders slumped, his eyes dim. His defense argued that he had reformed, that his current businesses were legitimate, that he had given back to society. But the prosecutors tore down every wall. Bank statements, emails, recorded calls, they painted a portrait of a man who thrived on manipulation. Even his charitable donations were revealed as smokescreens. The jury listened, unflinching, as the truth unraveled. The verdict was brutal but inevitable. Guilty on all counts. The judge's words rang like thunder. 43 years in federal prison. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Victor's head bowed. He thought of his children, of Amaka's soft hands, of the nights he whispered to himself that tomorrow would never come. Tomorrow had arrived, and it had stripped him bare. In Nigeria, his empire collapsed overnight. Banks froze accounts. Politicians who once praised him deleted photos. Brands severed partnerships. His Instagram, once alive with millions of followers, became a graveyard of insults and mockery. Scammer, thief, shame to Nigeria. Comments flooded, drowning the legacy he had fought to build. His properties were seized, hotels auctioned, cars repossessed. Workers who once bowed now walked away, muttering prayers for new employers. Amaka faced humiliation in markets and churches. Once envied for her wealth, she became a symbol of disgrace. Neighbors whispered as she passed. Some pitied her, others scorned. She cried silently at night, clutching her children close, whispering, "Your father is more than his mistakes." But the children, once proud of their Superman, struggled with taunts at school. Their world of ponies and parties had dissolved into shadows. In prison, Victor lived a life stripped of glamour. Gray walls, iron bars, and a thin mattress replaced his silk sheets and chandeliers. Meals were bland, conversations reduced to murmurs among fellow inmates. Yet it was not the cold walls that crushed him, but the memories of what he had built and destroyed. He often sat by the narrow window, staring at the thin slice of sky, whispering, "I just wanted to be more." Some nights he prayed, asking God for forgiveness, tears staining his rough pillow. The world moved on without him, but his story lingered as a warning. Newspapers recounted his fall, schools debated his legacy, and young men who once idolized him now shook their heads. Success built on lies cannot stand, teachers repeated. For every scammer dreaming of mansions, Victor's name became a lesson etched in history. And so, the boy who once dreamed of being a pilot, who traced airplanes across the Nigerian sky, found himself grounded forever. Not by poverty this time, but by the weight of deceit. The empire he built on lies had crumbled, leaving only rubble where glory once stood. Victor Omanigo's story shows that shortcuts glitter but collapse. His empire rose fast, but it was built on broken trust and lies. In prison, stripped of wealth, he discovered that true success is not in cars, hotels, or applause. It is in peace of mind, integrity, and love that endures. Let his fall remind you, honest work may be slower, but it lasts. Build carefully, build truthfully, and you will sleep without fear. If the story moved you, like the video, subscribe, share with friends, and comment the lessons you've learned. You never know who your words might inspire.